I'm very happy to be with you today. Bonjour. When I was looking to introduce this first opening panel on urban technology, I figured might be a good idea to define what urban tech means. As every word we use, sometimes we don't really know what's behind it. And in the spirit of new tech, I figured I'd turn out to the web and the crowd to see what people have been saying about urban tech. And there was a survey done online on what urban tech means, and the three definitions that came up first from about 4,000 submissions were: technology is about progress and innovation, urban technology makes our living simpler and smarter, and urban technology means applying knowledge to make cities more equitable and efficient. So in the spirit of this mosaic of different definitions, we have a mosaic of fantastic experts in urban tech. They all come from very different backgrounds and expertise. I will not read out their bios. You have them in your binders. I'd rather keep the time for the discussion today. But I wanted to introduce you from, we'll start from you, Taylor. Ivy is the mayor of San Antonio, and she will talk to us about how a city can work and partner to bring urban tech alive and make her citizens living a simpler and smarter life. We have Alexandre Taillefer, who's well known in our Montreal circles as the entrepreneur who created this brand new concept of Theo taxis. He's also an investor at XPND Capital and founder. He will talk to us a lot about transportation, I assume, Alexandre. Anil Menon from Cisco. He's the president of Smart+Connected communities at Cisco. He will bring to us the view on how large corporations can actually partner with different stakeholders to bring technologies and a lot of great insight and wisdom in thinking about our cities. And last but not least, Chiara Corazza, managing director for the Greater Paris Investment Agency, who will bring us the vision of a city as a pole of attraction for investment and companies and people alike. And Chiara is also on the board of the RATP, which is moving 10 million people every day, which is no small task. To open this discussion and panel, I thought I'd just bring in an open question. I'll let you each talk about it, and then we'll dive into some more questions. I'm hoping to keep a few minutes at the end for questions from the audience so we can have some interaction. My first question is really about urban tech and what you've seen working. So I'd like you to tell me about where urban tech has fulfilled its promises and where you see it have been successful. I'm not going to call upon any order, so who wants to step in and get going on urban tech and successes you've seen and where it works?
May I start?
Yes, sure.
May I start? But I would just like to start, to congratulate, thank you anyway, Estelle, to congratulate John Rawson, because I think that the issue that he put out today, the new tech in the big metropolis and the big capitals, it's really it's very important. And I would like just to add a little personal thing. The mayor of Montreal just went away, but the first time I came in Montreal, it was in April '85, and I was there to create Metropolis. It was an idea of Michel Giraud, that was former president of the Greater Paris region, and it was with Pierre Desmarais II that they created this wonderful network of exchanges. And at that time, it was quite a new idea to change and to avoid the others to make errors. And it was a big idea, and it's still very important for us because, for instance, now in Paris, we need cooperation, we need to share, because the world is changing so quickly. Just some figures that are very impressive in my mind. 10 years ago, nobody would figure out that Facebook would exist. 65% of the students now will work in a job that has still not been invented. 90% of the data that they are creating have been created in the last 2 years, according to IBM. Then things go so quickly that if you want to share experiences, we have to do it in real time. And that's why the new tech to improve the quality of life and to improve the attractiveness of the cities is so important. I was trying to share with you what's going on in Paris. We are reinventing completely Paris. Paris, everybody knows Paris. Greater Paris, it's maybe the most rich and powerful metropolis in Europe with 1,000 billion of GDP. But we are completely reconstructing a new city on the city, reinventing Paris. That means that we are constructing 200 new kilometers of automated metro. That means that we're doubling the surface of the existing transportation that, as you know, it's already very performant. And creating this new metro, this new 200 kilometers, we are creating 68 new stations. And it will be a completely revolutionary system of transportation and a way of living in the station. It will not be like it's now, and we need all the best technologies of the world to do it. We need all the best practice in the world, because we have to be the smarter connection for all these 12 million inhabitants and the 47 visitors each year. That's a real challenge. And the challenge is also the way of financing that, because we have an original way of financing it in France. It's completely paid by the taxpayers. Then you see it's something that in the, let's say, Anglo-Saxon world would be very astonishing, but the 50 billion that are needed to finance this new infrastructure are financed by the public sector. Half of them are financed by the government directly. They created by law a society of Grand Paris, who's in charge to construct this new network, and the other half is financed by the region. By the way, I would like to tell you, David Douillet, who is here in the attendance, who is vice president of the region. It's a new elected executive of the region, and the region is completely full in charge of transportation sector. And the region will finance 25 billion, all that in 10 years. It's a very short time for us to construct such an outstanding project. And the region will finance the 25 billion necessary to modernize the existing transportation network. And then again, we need the best practice, we need the best innovation. In the room, there is a representative of Xerox. We work a lot with Cisco. We work with the best. I mean, we need the people who know how to reinvent a city, because it's easier to construct a new city. Look, Masdar. Masdar, it's easy. It's in the desert. They have a lot of money. 20 billion have been invested to create Masdar. Masdar, it's a wonderful show of all the best technologies, but there's no people living there. In Paris, we have 12 million people, and we have to recreate the city on an existing city and to capitalize on the heritage of the city, and that is a challenge. Maybe I will stop there, but I have so much to say about what's going on.
We'll come back to it. You mentioned partnerships, and that's a subject we really want to talk about as well. Anil, what's your view on urban tech and where it's working?
So let me, I know Alexandre is also a techie, but as a person who gets his paycheck from a technology company, what I'm going to say is probably going to get me fired. And I have been arguing this point for quite some time, that says the best thing that has happened with smart cities, smart communities, whatever it is the fact that people are focusing on technology. And the worst thing that has happened is people are focusing on technology. Because I think smart communities is too important to be left to the technologist. And if we were left to do it, we would be doing crap. I mean, we would be excited by the stuff we're putting out there, but no one will benefit in a social sense and an environmental sense. So the first thing I would say is that technology, urban tech, the focus should be on the urban experience and less on the technology. Technology should be a little transparent and invisible, and it should be seamlessly integrated. And that has been something that we have been pushing. When Wim started this whole thing back, we always said, smart cities is about the soul of the city. And do we even understand the soul of a great city? And I would argue Mexico City is a fantastic city, not because it's got fantastic technology, but because it's got a fantastic soul. I would argue Bombay, I was born and raised in Bombay. I wouldn't want to live in Bombay now, but the fact is some people would never leave Bombay because of the vibrancy of Bombay, not because of the roads of Bombay or the buildings of Bombay. So that's the first point I would make. The second thing I would make here when we come back to technology is to recognize that this question you ask as to where is technology, urban tech working, or where it does work, depends on the context. So in my experience globally, Europe was the farthest along in thinking about smart communities and smart cities, but the starting point and the beginning point and the middle point has always been about quality of life. How do I maintain and enhance the quality of life? You go into emerging markets, whether it is in India or whether it is in Indonesia or whether it's Mexico, it's about how do I create a standard of living? Mm-hmm. So smart cities was about creating the middle class and standard of living, and how do I get people to move up? And then you come to America, which has been the laggard in this whole thing for the last 2 years, I would say, is when some cities like San Francisco had talked about mobility and sustainability. New York had talked, but not in a holistic, horizontal sense. It's in the last couple of years. But there, at least in my experience, most of the cities have talked about how do you attract investments, how do you attract talent, how do you attract jobs. So it's a very different way of entering. So you've got to think about, is urban tech helping with those causes? So if you think, and I'll just make one more point, which is the most important, at least of all the things I would say today, is that we have overwhelmingly focused our discussions on fantastic cities like Montreal or Barcelona or Copenhagen, and I think there's a big divide within a city. If you go into London and you go to East London and West London, we're talking about two countries. And you go into Paris, the same story, you just got to move the streets. Then you come into a place like Tanzania and a place like India or some others. So I'm going to just start by saying the last one where urban tech has worked, and we can talk about Dubai. You mentioned Masdar. I was in Dubai a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, and I remember my global head for sales, Amr Salam, driving me for a meeting, and he said, today we're going to have floods. And I said, floods? Seriously? He said, no, there's a department for rainmaking in Dubai. And he was on the radio this morning saying, please don't go out on the roads, we're going to create floods. I looked up, it was bright, shiny, bright skies, and he said, yeah, it's been too hot, so we're going to create floods today. And about 11 o'clock, the floods started. The sky started turning brown because there were cloud seeding. And by 1 o'clock, it was flooding. And I opened up Weather Channel on my Twitter, I'm on an app, and looked up Dubai, and it was shiny, bright, 88 degrees, according to the Weather Channel. So that hadn't caught up with the fact there was cloud seeding and rains being made in Dubai. So that's a classic case of urban tech that seems to be working for Dubai to create the green surfaces. Tanzania is a country of 43 million that has the highest birth rate and the highest infant mortality in the world. 150,000 babies die at birth from a heart condition. In a country of 45 million, 43 million, there's not one pediatric surgeon, there's not one pediatric pulmonologist, there's not one pediatric radiologist. This is a whole country. So I remember when Wim was with Cisco and we started Smart+Connected, we focused on a startup in Bangalore, connected all the pediatric surgeons, all the pediatric pulmonologists, created a startup, connected the two countries, and we are saving lives. But that startup is now valued at $1 billion because what they're doing is they're saving lives in Tanzania and Nepal and Kathmandu and in inner cities, but they also have the same network that is giving long-distance monitoring of ICU patients in America in 166 hospitals because there's a shortage of doctors and nurses in second-tier cities, and they're sitting in Chennai and Bangalore and Hyderabad. Those are examples of urban tech that is working. So we've got to put it in the context. Something may not be very sexy, but it will be very important in the way we work things. So I'm just going to pause there and we can talk.
No, thank you for those vivid examples. And I like the idea of the Maslow pyramid of cities, from the needs for water, food, security, all the way to quality of life. Ivy or Alexandre, you're working on both ends, right, Ivy? Can you tell us what your thinking is?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. This is an exciting conversation. I just wanted to echo a point that Anil made, that the focus has been on technology, and really smart cities and urban tech is really about people. Because people are the heart of the communities that we serve. And so that's the approach that we're trying to take in San Antonio in order to improve the quality of life there. Just for those that are unfamiliar, San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the U.S. with a population of 1.4 million people. It's in Southwest Texas. It's what we in the U.S. call a majority-minority city. It's 60% Latino. And so we find ourselves kind of straddling those two goals that you articulated, Anil, in relation to improving quality of life, but providing opportunity for people who've been left behind. And in my role as mayor, I see that as really the major promise of urban tech or smart cities, because my goal, obviously, is for us to be a globally competitive city. All of these cities, we're all competing against each other, not just in our nations, but also for us to be a city where everyone is connected to opportunity. And for a variety of reasons, I would say that hasn't been the case necessarily in San Antonio up to now. So, our role as the local city government, I think, is to figure out how we can capture data, convey it to citizens in a way that's useful for them, that allows them to engage, and then also improves their quality of life. There are a number of areas where I think people are particularly interested in urban tech or smart cities. Off the top of my head, I would think the average citizen would say in traffic management, we don't have a great mass transit system in San Antonio. It's much of the Southwest that was developed after the age of the automobile. So traffic management and also water conservation is a big issue for us. So I think a lot of folks are looking in those areas and how they can help us as a city. But I'm very interested in, closing the digital divide and how we can utilize the promise of technology to help people in educational opportunities or becoming entrepreneurs and understanding more and being more engaged in their local government in order to make their neighborhood stronger and their family stronger as well.
Thank you.
I'll really just continue on what you all mentioned. The people have to be at the center of every decision we'll take in the city, and the number one factor we should track is really happiness. Is our population happy or not? And one thing we need to be very careful of is that you mentioned the digital divide. We're currently creating in many cities two classes of citizens, people that will be self-employed and will work for the latest tech companies, will change rules in our cities to accommodate new business models that will actually ruin the lives of citizens. So we need to be very prudent at the deals we'll sign with large corporations, because a lot of innovation will require a lot of capital. And cities are at the center, they're the Saint Graal of if you want, what companies are looking for. Because you can they're very credit worthy, so you can put long-term commitments in place with cities, and you're gonna be in a situation where you sign deals for 20 years for the sake of discussion, and you're gonna you might affect the tissue of your population by signing deals too early without understanding clearly what are the entrants and the extrants of every decision a city will make. So we need to be very careful about that. We're all about tech. Tech's fun, but we need to take into account a lot more than technology, efficiency, productivity. There is more to it. There is a life of citizens.
That's interesting. When we prepared, Anil was mentioning that he thought the emerging players will be large global service companies, but we also heard about the ecosystem of local startups. How do you balance this? And what do you see in Paris, or what is your view as well, because you've been at the center of this?
I'd like to come back with what Anil said, because I think that the real issue is this one: to balance the quality of life. That's absolutely the focus of democracy, of the main interest of, but an environment of business, because as you said, you have to attract jobs, you have to attract talents, you have to attract capitals, you have to attract investments. 20% of the jobs in Greater Paris directly depend from international investments. Then you have to balance the two things, and it's very difficult, because it's easy to give to large corporations or to startup the floor and to let them do, but it has to be focused on the human being. And again, I always like very much, because maybe I'm Italian origin, I like very much the model of the city of the Renaissance. You remember the best invention, Leonardo da Vinci, and the beauty and the creative city were in the city, were not the state. It was exactly as it now, the competition among global cities, no more among states. And it was a bit the same. It was the city that focused on man, on human being, on humanism, but the creativity. I think that if we can come back at this, use these technologies and all, let's see what's happening in Paris. In Paris, it's very interesting, because we have a very planned urbanism, as you know. Everything has been planned. We have the engineers to think what will be happening in 20 years and so on. But at the same time, well, all these new startups, you know what, 12,100 startups in Paris, only in Paris, that creates 500,000 jobs a year. That means 10% of the jobs in Greater Paris are now created by startups in innovation and human tech and new technology. And what has the public power they had to do something. And what they create incubators. We have now a lot of incubators. For instance, just 3 months ago was inaugurated Cargo. It's a very big one, the biggest in Europe. A private one, Xavier Niels, who is the founder of Free, just invested to renew and to rebuild an old station, old Fraissinet. It's Jean-Michel Villemotte, famous architect, who is rebuilding it. They will, next year, they will host 1,000 new enterprises, small and medium enterprises, startups. And they will be the biggest incubator in the world. That you have this balance between public sector who helps, private sector who helps, and a very good coordination. We're talking about governance. In this field of innovation, there's a very good coordination between the different clusters. We have many clusters. As you have here the GRAP in Montreal, we have the clusters who are dedicated to different sectors. For instance, Cap Digital, it's for the new technology you know that in video games and so on. And they work with the region. For instance, we just had, last week we had Futur en Scène, who was an international, very prestigious event where you can show what's happening in new technology linked to the city. And there was this good cooperation between public agencies, region, clusters, and private sector. And really very, very good coordination. And it's not always so easy in France. And corporate, for instance, in cargo, mostly of the occupancy are big corporate, NG, Cataran corporate, that helping startup. These big groups, small groups, all working together. And Cisco, for instance, is very active. I really appreciate very much with Cisco. We are working a lot, for instance, to reinvent the hub of the airport. We are trying to invent a virtual hospital. We didn't talk about e-health. E-health is really very important for the city technology. It's changed life. You can make diagnostic from but you now take mannequin and you don't kill people. You train on people that do not exist at mannequin and so on. And with Cisco, we are doing a lot of things. For instance, at the airport, you can have a little cabin, and if you lose your passport or you just forget it somewhere, you can call the prefecture and get immediately a copy. It's not done now, but it will be done very, very quickly. All these things are going very quickly.
So Anil, on partnerships, and we've heard Alexandre saying, beware of the big companies who want a long-term partnership early, because we might not know how it should look like. Two other examples where it has worked. What's your feeling about the emerging players and the kind of the balance of power of those players in those partnerships?
No, I appreciate because I hear this all the time, and it's a correct point. I don't. Maybe I'm putting words in Alexandre's mouth. I don't think the problem is the large companies, is the large contracts where the future is not known when everything is being developed. When you're doing something without understanding it and you're locking yourself in, you may be choosing the wrong option. It's not whether it's a large company or a small company. So I totally agree with that. And so let me take a couple of points on this. First one is, the fact of the matter is no one city can transform itself on its own. It's just not going to happen. No one company can actually transform a city too. It's just too large an effort. So you have to have a public-private partnership, and it has to be a true public-private partnership, not this 30-year concession plans where the government is trying to avoid cost and the private enterprise is trying to avoid risk. It's just the wrong model. A lot of the public-private partnership models are wrong. So I'll just come back to this, three things that I will say. One is you have to have local ecosystem partners, because this entire thing of smart cities, or whether you call it Internet of Things or whatever you want to call it, is not yet well defined. The market is evolving. The customer preferences are not clear because people don't quite know what technology can do for them. The preferences are not quite known. Competitive structures are not quite known because companies are transforming themselves. And so we look at a city as a living lab. The more you can look at your city or your community as a living lab, and then look at it as a way to develop the new way of working, the new way of living, then you need local ecosystem, because there's no way a Cisco or an IBM, or for that matter, Angie going to a different country would understand the local context. For that, you need local entrepreneurs who understand the local ethos and work on it. That's one point I would make. The one that is missing, and the one that we need to engage a lot more, is it is not, public-private partnership is not between government, the mayor's office, or the state office and the private enterprise. The labor unions in many places are very important because they represent the mass of the installed base, of the current middle class, the current people who are making things. And they are the ones who are deeply suspicious, because every time you put a camera up, the police officers union will say, I know why you're putting a camera up there. You're going to reduce the police force by 2. If you put something in a classroom, teachers will say, I know why you're putting that system. You're trying to reduce us from teachers and make them. So we have to bring, because A, they understand the context better than us. They understand the challenges. And rather than looking to them for answers, we can include the labor unions, and that public piece is the one that is missing. We have academics, we have government. I don't see enough of engagement with the labor unions or any equivalent of that to think through how a city should be.
Thank you for bringing it. Do you have examples of cities who you want to intervene?
I
Yes.
wanted to offer an example kind of as follow-up. Actually, this was a meeting that I had yesterday before I left San Antonio, just on trying to figure out who the partners and stakeholders are that should be at the table in implementing technology and managing and balancing citizen expectations. I had a meeting with several parties that are involved in our rollout of our body cam program with our San Antonio Police Department. So I'm sure you all have been reading and seeing that in the U.S. we've had several high-profile incidents that have led to the belief that body cams is a best practice for law enforcement. And so we in San Antonio embraced that as well, though I will admit that I was very kind of wary on what that might mean, what some of the implications were beyond just the, expectation for transparency and the opportunity to use technology to help instill confidence in the public, in our police. And so sure enough, we are struggling with how to download and convey the information to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's office is trying to figure out how to provide it in a timely fashion to the defense attorneys, and not to mention that the city has employed a body cam program with our San Antonio Police Department, but in our area we also have a county that has a sheriff, and the sheriff has selected a different vendor for their body cams, which doesn't connect necessarily with what we're trying to do, as far as everybody has to get their information to the district attorney. And so, obviously hindsight is 20/20. In retrospect, I think we could have had a better process as far as everyone establishing expectations up front, but also I don't think that I think we're still on the front of conveying to the public of what their expectations should be as far as access to that information and how quickly things will be processed. So that's just an example of how the technology kind of gets ahead of us, and we haven't thought through all the back end. The other observation I would like to make that I was making at this meeting is that I think unfortunately there aren't enough of us who are in the decision-making capacities in the public sector. This kind of goes back to the comment about, getting yourself, getting locked into something where you can't really see the future on technology, but there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect in the personalities and people who tend to be elected or appointed and making decisions, and those who have a great understanding of the technology. But that kind of goes both ways as well. We recently also had another situation where we were trying to work with a technology advocacy group. We had a group of tech entrepreneurs who kind of formed a group called Tech Block, and they started, demanding things of the city as far as making technology available. But once they became involved in the process, specifically this was around Uber, once they became involved in the public policy making process, they were like, oh, we get it now. Now we understand why you all haven't been able to just immediately implement and execute the things that we feel are, that any modern city should have and employ. So there needs to be more translation between public policy makers and those in the technology field. I don't know exactly how to make that happen, but I definitely see it as a deficit.
The need for tech literacy in our governance bodies is, corporate as well as public bodies is actually quite urgent, I would say. Now, Alexandre, when you build your company, I know it was not an easy road. development and implementation of urban tech. You've went through many hoops. You're an entrepreneur, so you thrive by it, but I know it hasn't been easy. Let's talk a little bit about the impediments. What is it that will stop urban tech from being used, implemented, deployed, financed? You mentioning data privacy, the notion of data management. We know regulators are always behind. It's tough to change regulations, laws, to understand the implications quickly enough.
Yeah.
What's your feeling about that, Alexandre?
Clearly, regulations is a major issue. And one thing people need to understand is lobbying is not bad. It's actually good when you do a good lobby, when you're lobbying for the good. And so you need to have access to the mayors. You need to have access to the ministers, to everybody working to let them understand why changes are required. And they need to have a global view about that. And that's sometimes a big issue, because obviously if you listen to your voters, you might go for the latest thing that's shining. But reality is this might bring additional problems or troubles inside your city. One thing people need to understand is that you mentioned there was a London East and London West. In Montreal, we have that too. We're currently operating Hochelaga, which is a taxi company operating in the east of Montreal. 94% of our calls are done through the phone service. And the usage of intelligent mobile phones in the east of Montreal is probably less than 20%. When you take into consideration that the people will generate a yearly income of $45,000 per family, how can these people afford the data plan and the latest phone? You need to keep that in mind. And the biggest challenge our society will be facing in the next 20 years is certainly the robotization. And this will have a big impact on the middle class and lower. And we can estimate today that probably 30 to 40% of the jobs could disappear, replaced by robots. If a robot flips a burger, who will pay for the burger? And that's a big challenge our society will be facing in the coming years. So technology, investment in new cities, absolutely super important. But let's make sure that everybody can benefit from this.
Yeah, that digital divide, whether technology bridges. I know Chiara has something to say. Is that an urgent reply? Go ahead.
No, I just want to put one point, because Alexandre makes a great point. Because what happens very often in the cities, things are happening and we don't even notice it. I just came back from Europe. I was in Copenhagen last week, and I was telling them that, if you look at the migration crisis in Europe, it's not going away. It has nothing to do with Syrian war. It may be connected to Syrian war, but it's nothing to do with Syrian war. It has to do with urbanization. There are people who are struggling for lack of urban services in rural areas, which is why they're moving to cities, not because they want to go live in a slum, because they're saying, I don't have access to healthcare, education, jobs, and some sense of culture. So they're saying, we're going to move, and we're going to put up with all this stuff, and we're going to keep coming in. So you have a country of Slovenia that has got 280,000 people coming in, which is more than the city of Ljubljana, the capital, in 6 months. I don't think this is going to go away because, these people are not going to stop. And the top 10 countries in GDP in 2050, only 2 of them are European countries, UK and Germany, and US. Japan is on it, but everything else is Russia, Mexico, Indonesia, India. And these are not going to be per capita GDP wealthy countries. It's going to be poorer on a per capita GDP. So I think this point that you're making, I think we better do it now, because the kids are not getting, they're not going to say, I'm going to stay at 18 till you figure it out, and then I'll become 19. No, they're getting older with no education, no jobs, and they're going to become more, because they're going to have access to information on the net about all the stuff before they have access to good healthcare and education. And that is a horrible, horrible combination that we have to live with. So your happiness index, even if it's not happiness, at least make sure they're not depressive indexes.
Yeah, expectations. We're going to have a panel later on the digital divide, so I know the panelists will dive much deeper in that. Chiara, you wanted to add a quick comment?
Yes, I just want to add something about the unions, because I think that it's an interesting point. For instance, in the RATP, we have 9 representatives of the unions on the board. 9 representatives to the unions. And now the RATP, who is the 5th largest transportation company in the world, is completely restructuring her business model, because it's going to be open to the concurrence, there's no more monopoly. And like the La Poste or other big companies in France, they have absolutely to invent. And of course, new technology will be the good way to reinvent the system. But the union are afraid. Many unions say, okay, you are losing jobs because automated metro. You are, of course, the new president of the region, for instance, wants now a system of no paper and system of ticket payment without paper. Okay, if people don't have a phone, if people don't have an account in a bank, and so on and so on. Then all this innovation, there's for instance an example that has been given to the RATP. There is a video system for the security that's called NeoFace that works in Japan, and that is a fashion recognition in public, and public transportation determining age, sex, and so on. You can know how many people comes and so on. It would be completely impossible in France because people want their own freedom. They don't want to be recognized. They don't. Then you have a change in mentalities. Oh, it's not so easy. I think that, for instance, in Paris, we are very open to new technologies, but for something, we won't give our freedom. I mean, we pay attention of what to do and what not to do. And don't forget that in France, you have in the constitution, you have three things: equality. For instance, you don't have a fast track. You pay if you pay. The same. I mean, if you pay more, you make the queue as everybody. Equality, freedom, and equality. Then this it's a mentality you can't change that. The new technology you can't impose them. Yeah. Then it's very important unions and acceptance of the public.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what you were talking about, informing and educating the public as well about what the technology means. And I think that this is the beginning of everything as well. I'm curious, I'm techie as well. Yeah,
just
Alex.
one thing, we thought we would talk about unions this morning when we're supposed to talk innovations in cities. Reality is unions are very important, and the more unionized a people is, probably the more equal it is, and the more they'll take into consideration the poorest. But I think unions need to work on new ways to establish relationships with corporations. The most productive country, or probably one of the most productive country in Europe is Germany. And Germany is probably one of the most unionized country in the world. There needs to be lessons learned from that. We need to establish new partnerships with the unions, and unions need to become less corporate. They need to understand that they're there to protect the poorest people as well, something they haven't done in North America, at least, for the last 25, 30 years. So, of course, defending the richest middle class is important, but they need to take into consideration all the other people they're not currently defending.
Yes,
a lot of the unions today came out of the industrial economy. I think they need to come into the digital economy and understand the digital economy and figure out what is the equivalent version, because unions was a result of the bad things of the industrial economy. And so today you worry about privacy, you worry about security, you worry about digital divide. Well, are the unions going to apply the rules of the industrial economy to the digital world? They're always going to fail. You need to have people who are informed on the digital world. But today, I would argue a lot of the unions, and I hate to say this, Mayor, but a lot of the mayoral staff also are not informed on the digital world. It's almost like saying, I'll build a building, I'll worry about electricity later. I'll worry about plumbing later. Many players are now thinking, I'll worry about digital stuff later. First, let's get this thing going. And I think that is the biggest mistake.
It's that tech literacy we were talking about earlier.
Well, if I could offer a counterpoint from the great state of Texas, where unions aren't really that beloved. So we're operating in a little bit of a different environment and different space because unions don't really dominate the scene. So that does beg the question, so who is advocating for the working class and the poor? And that is a question we're struggling with. Some of us who are elected are focused on that. You know, my background is in urban planning, and affordable housing and community development. So for me, the promise of smart cities and urban tech is all about the ability to connect people to opportunity who have previously been disconnected. But I also think there's tremendous promise and opportunity for grassroots NGOs, nonprofit organizations, as we call them in the States, to be the advocates for specific groups in ensuring that technology is not just about making life better and easier for the rich and the middle class, but instead that it also provides the opportunity for those who've been at the bottom to be able to climb the rungs, because, I mean, that's, you know, in America, that's what we refer to as the American dream, that everyone has the opportunity if they work really hard. So that's kind of the way that we're working that angle in San Antonio.
And I love the background of urban planning for mayor. I think this is just perfect. We have very little time left, so I've got 2 questions I'd like you to answer very briefly. The first one is, I would like to know if you had to invest all your savings into one urban tech, where would you put your savings? Chiara?
It depends if you will make money or if you will improve the society.
Urban tech as improving the lives of the people
no,
in our cities.
it's a joke. I mean, it depends. For instance, in France, we just have a very nice success. Probably you know, it's BlaBlaCar. It's a young man I like very much. Just invented a system of covoiturage. I mean, you just have to, in a platform, and you want to go from place A to place B. You don't want to drive yourself, and you find somebody who drives there, and you share the price of the and this young man, it's quite amazing because in 5-6 years he invented just a system that works very well. Last year he just he's capitalized at 1 billion now. It's what we call the licorne. That means the one that's more than 1 billion. And last year this year just raised almost $2,000 million just in a year, and I'm sure that's a very profitable one. And that could be one, but I mean, all these young people that have so many ideas.
One technology, so peer sharing. And
Peer
I believe
share, yes.
BlaBlaCar every month has about 2 million trips booked, just to
Absolutely.
give you a sense of the scale. Anil,
And
one
30
technology.
million clients, I think.
Clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, anything to do with the sharing economy connected with tech, whether it's the equivalent of peer sharing, is a great one. But I'll just go a little different, because I think the world is going to be dramatically different in the next 6 years because of a complete new innovation that no one is paying attention to or even aware. Liquid biopsy. How many of you have heard of that? Liquid biopsy is going to completely transform cancer and oncology. And doctors are not yet ready for it. It's all about data and analysts. Today, oncology is all about bone cancer, skin cancer. You detect cancer when it's 100 million cells after 6 to 7 years by accident. Liquid biopsy is looking at the blood, one little thing, analyzing it on track. Your smartphones and the others will manage it. I saw somebody write a really negative article on this new digital tampon, and they're saying this is the kind of stupidity that's come out. I'm saying it's written by a male, that's why they say that. But the fact of the matter is that is going to save the lives of millions and millions of women, because it's going to detect cancer way early. So liquid biopsy is the one that you should all pay attention to. It's going to transform medicine and healthcare.
And thank you for showing how the convergence of those techs, it's not just urban tech, right? It's technology at large.
I might
Alexandre?
change my mind. Digital tampons look amazing. I might invest a few bucks in that. Well, actually, it's not really a hypothetical question. I'm investing most of my money now in transportation, and I believe that the future is transport as a service. You currently pay $95 to get an Opus card in Montreal that gets you access to public transit. I dream of the day where you're going to pay $250 a month and you're going to get access to ride sharing, you're going to get access to cabs, get access to whatever you need to get to the point you want to get as fast as possible, as comfortable as possible, or as cheap as possible. We need to fight against the cars as much as possible. Let's get rid of the cars in cities.
I dream of the day you will pay citizens to get the Opus card, so they use public transportation. And I'm sure the business case is there.
It would actually be an amazing investment,
Yeah.
Something we need to eventually work on.
Changing the business model.
Wow,
Maybe.
it's so hard to pick just one. I'm not quite sure. Transportation and healthcare obviously are two big areas, but I guess I've always believed that education is the great equalizer. I don't know what the cutting edge education technology is that's out there. Certainly in our public schools, you know, we see we see students using technology more in their studies. And then, from my perspective as a mayor, we try to provide access in public libraries and other venues. So I hope that there will be something revolutionary in that space, because I think that really can make the most difference overall for quality of life for the most people.
That's the challenge, but education tech, it hasn't been invented yet, I think. Last question to conclude. What is you already mentioned that. What is a technology we haven't heard of and that you know of and that we haven't never heard of?
Well, don't look at me. I need to think about it at least 30 seconds.
Chiara, Ivy, any idea? Something you know we don't know.
I'll just say the video internet. Everybody's thinking of internet as data. Internet has already become a video based. In the next 6 years, it will be over 90% is video. By 2020, one family in America will load onto the internet the same amount of data as the global internet of 2008. And that's not going to be because of Gangnam Style videos or cats. It's because we're going to be dealing with doctors, we're going to be dealing with teachers, we're going to be dealing with work very differently. Time and space is going to change. So I say the video internet. Of course, there's a plug for Cisco too.
Thank you. Any last idea? You had time to think about it now, Alexandre?
Yeah, well, obviously having access to the internet without
Connectivity.
showing like it is. I mean, projecting the internet in your iris and controlling the internet using your brain will make every human being a lot more efficient, productive, intelligent, something I'm really looking for.
You
That's
might
going
solve
a little
your
too far for me.
You might solve your
Not there
camera
yet.
thing.
Not
Thank
there
you
yet.
very much. 45 minutes doesn't quite give the credit to this panel. I just want to leave you with one last quote I got from Jen Jacobs' book on the death and life of great American cities in the honor of our mayor here. She has something very interesting. She says, the key to the smart city is to see how people use it today, to look for its strengths and to exploit and reinforce them. Many layers, historical events, personalities, social movements, and geography shape a city and make it livable. The real test is the pass-fail report card of those entities a decade from now. So you all have a very important piece to play there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.